telling you that because now at this point we are live.
Okay.
Doesn't
I,
mean we have to go. Doesn't mean we have to
okay.
go yet.
Okay, good. Because I was going to say,
don't say anything
gotcha.
because
Provocative.
because people will be able to watch this before they.
Okay. And I'd like to be done at 5 o'clock if I could. Possible?
And James Ellingson joining us on OSN, where I think I've decided that overtime starts now is a good thing for the a post-game show. OSN, overtime starts now.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you.
You've had lots of time to think about this.
Well, I had lots of time to think in the New England Patriots victory over the Denver Broncos in one of the worst football games I've ever seen. But Duke, congratulations. Where's the applause? Where's the applause button? There you go.
Well, thank you so much.
Congratulations.
I had lots to do with it.
Have backed into the Super Bowl more than any other team I've ever seen in my life. Okay, let's start there. And I'm going to hit you right away with, why is everybody talking about Sean Payton's decision not to kick the field goal on 4th and 1 in the second quarter of a 7-0 game?
Because it didn't work.
Is it a fair thing to go back to that point? And look, I'm not a Sean Payton guy, but it feels very arbitrary that because they lost by 3,
right,
and they didn't score any points after that, that was an easy thing to go back to, where if you watch that drive, they drove all the way down the field and never once, got negative yards or so. I guess the only criticism or thought that I would have, and I want to ask you, do you think that it should have been in their head about the weather coming and what was going to be, or did that just surprise everybody?
Well, there's a couple things I wanted to say about it. So first of all, I think if you're somebody who in real time could sort of prove, especially if you're in the media, I think, right, could prove that you said, don't go for it, kick the field goal, like Tony Romo did, in fairness to him on Sunday. He was
best color commentator in the NFL. Yeah, nailed another one.
He didn't say it afterwards. He said it before. The other thing too, right, is that I remember Bill Simmons said this once: when you're watching a game that your favorite team is involved in, the other team's coach or the other team is about to make a decision that makes you feel really good inside, it was the wrong decision. In other words, most Patriot fans, as I was watching it, said, oh, please go for it. Please go for it. Because my thought was two things. One is at least they have a chance to stop them. Secondly, even if they get the first down, it doesn't guarantee them anything except another set of downs. So they're not conceding a touchdown. To me, the upside was we just need to we need some momentum here. That's the only way we can get it. Because if they kick a field goal, we're down 10-0. If they miss, we got the ball and we're only down 7. So I think sometimes you have a sense.
Okay.
It was just the wrong decision in the moment. And I found the one thing he said that was the most interesting to me that really didn't make sense was he said, the way our defense was playing, I thought this would be a good time to get some momentum. And I would have thought exactly the opposite. If you're playing in a game, to your point, if New England had gone down the field and scored and they went down the field and it was like back and forth, everybody, and nobody could stop anybody, then I think you are thinking, gee, we really need more than a field goal here. If you saw what that defense did in the first, 3-4 drives, I mean, they really did nothing. So why would you not think in that moment, take my points? The weather was interesting because I heard today that what the weather forecast guys told both teams at the stadium in real time in the pregame was that there was going to be some snow, and that was kind of it. Nobody said it's also going to be 40-mile-an-hour winds and blowing snow, and it's going to be covering the field. So it felt like both teams really didn't understand the implications of what that weather was going to do. So all of those things to say, I just think given how great his defense is and how limited the Patriots offense was in the first 20 minutes, I just didn't see the upside. And again, like I say, all you were guaranteeing yourself was a first down, unless you scored a touchdown, I guess. But on the next play,
I know what you're saying,
right?
You're not in the
end zone yet. So take your points and move on. So it was very interesting.
So just on that point, I watch other sports, and this might be a bad comparison, but I watch NASCAR. And inevitably in, a week or 2 or 3, if you watch consecutive races, there will be some weather that comes in. And I'm telling you, Duke, they have people upon people upon people with each team that think about when the weather's going to come. Think about that if the race ends, do we kind of go for it now? Because if the weather comes and they're past the halfway point, it's an official race. So then do you stretch the gas? Do you put on different tires? All of this different strategy because they have multiple people on the radar. And I know that sounds silly when you look back to this, but at some point you had to have known it was going to snow. And I don't care what the NFL people told your team. I care about what you as an organization think, okay, well, this is coming and it's coming really soon. And we might need to get every point we can because it's going to be very difficult to move the ball. And I know that sounds kind of retrospect 2020 hindsight, but I'm telling you, the weather in a lot of sports is a big, big deal. And for them to know that information, that is probably the biggest thing why I think he should have kicked the field goal.
Right. And to your point, at the very least, regardless, you knew it was going to be harder when the snow came to manufacture offense, harder to score, and in many cases just easier for the defense, right? Because they can sort of plant their feet and come downhill at you, etc. So you're right. At the end of the day, regardless of how serious or how big the storm was going to be, get your points while you had a dry track.
The other thing too is for me, Jared Stidham as the quarterback, like Sean Payton's very good, and you see teams that are very good in the first 15 plays or the scripted plays, whatever you want to call it. And as the game goes along, you're not doing that anymore. The defense is kind of catching on. Do you think that should have been a factor as well, that Sean Payton should have known that Jared Stidham's offense was going to slow down regardless as the game went along?
I think there's two things that I thought of during the game, and one was very evident to your point. It seemed like after maybe that second series, from that point on, and I think I saw the numbers of how many times New England brought pressure, they realized, I think to your point, that Stidham's good enough if we let him sit back there and have some time to make decisions. If we rush him in making decisions, it's going to be to our benefit because he just doesn't have the number of snaps under his belt, right, to be able to dissect. And so that was one thing. And I thought the other thing that, and I don't know if it was all planned, but it certainly looked more like on the New England side that the Patriots said, one thing we can do to combat this defense is get our quarterback to run the ball, whether it's a planned draw like they did on the touchdown, a couple of those big scrambles, obviously the last offensive play of the game when they were able to get the first down. And at no time did it feel like that Sean Payton said, let's do something like that. Because Stidham's not a statue back there. He's not, Tom Brady or, Peyton Manning. He could run, he could move. And so why not get him outside of the pocket, let him just run? Because then you don't have to make a decision, right? You can just use your athleticism, find some daylight, slide in, get a first down, whatever. So I agree. I felt like after New England turned up the dial on pressure, play after play after play, Sean Payton didn't have much of an answer for that.
Do you like that the weather became such a factor in such an important game? I know that's a really kind of going back.
Yep.
There's a reason they play the Super Bowl in nice weather. So I guess I'm just asking, does that matter to you in 2026?
Well, I don't think it should matter up until the Super Bowl because you can't dictate ahead of the season who's going to be in the playoffs, who's going to be getting home playoff games, where they are geographically. Can't control it. And if you want to play football in North America in January, well, sometimes that's going to happen, whether it's just bitter cold, like you think about that Green Bay Giants game a number of years ago when Tom Coughlin's nose almost fell off, right? Because it was so cold, or wind or whatever it is. It's just part of the reality of it, and teams have to deal with it. I don't think you can do anything about it unless you want to start scheduling your championship games. And at what point do you go backwards and say, well, the championship game shouldn't be played in inclement weather, so let's put them in. Maybe we should do it for the divisional final. And then where does your home field advantage go, right? So eventually, it's just one of those things that happens. And at least I was glad for once that it felt like they put the the fans and the players' safety as a priority and didn't have the Denver game at night and the Seattle game in the afternoon. At least I felt like they got that one right.
So speaking of the Seattle Seahawks, the LA Rams and the Seahawks, it looked like, okay, whoever, like when they were playing, like whoever's winning this game is going to win the Super Bowl. But that's kind of how a lot of people look at what's to come. What did you make of the Seahawks never really letting the Rams get even though they didn't quit? It felt like Sam Darnold and the Seahawks always had an answer for Sean McVay and the Rams and Matt Stafford. And that's saying something because that's a difficult team to always be ahead of. And they felt like they were a half a step ahead.
You know, I thought the same thing at the end of the game because everybody, including me, thought, the Sam Darnold Cinderella slipper was eventually not going to fit in a big game and he was going to revert back to what we saw him do last year in Minnesota. He didn't have to win the game for them against San Francisco, right? I mean, I think you were the one that told me it was, if the game would have ended after whatever it was, 25 seconds, that they would have won. The San Francisco didn't score enough points after the whatever it was, right? So he didn't need to do. He played well, but he didn't have to. In this game, there was a lot of moments where exactly you felt like, okay, here it comes. The Rams got themselves in a bit of a jam. Then they get up near the end of the half. What does Darnold do? Bring them down at the end and get that touchdown. Twice they're up 11. Twice the Rams come back. And how about the whole, was his name Woolen, the kid who got the penalty, the taunting penalty on the sidelines?
Yeah.
Like that's the perfect, if you looked at an encapsulated scenario of a team, like the game switching was, you're going to put him in 4th and 12. They're going to have to punt. This guy goes mental and gets a penalty. They keep the ball. The very next play against that same guy, Nakua scores a touchdown. Now they're within 4, and you're thinking that's the turning point. And yet, Darnold brought them back, steadied the ship, got them in a position to get up again. And then the very end was, to me, incredibly impressive, right? Because they went for it on 4th down, didn't get it. There's still 4.5 minutes left.
Yep.
And Seattle's down on their own, 6-yard line, and they needed first downs. They needed to run the clock, and I can think now of at least 3 throws. One of them was a great play by Walker, I think, to get the first down, but the other 2 throws were just tremendous throws. And he did everything he needed to do to, as you said, to keep the Rams at bay, and he was the reason that they won that game. And so you got to give him credit for kind of taking all those ghosts, right, and putting them aside and playing the game of his life.
And not only that, I mean, you look at Sam Darnold, he is 32-9 over his last 41 starts. And that is with Carolina, not very good. He had 1 game in San Francisco, Minnesota, that people thought at the beginning of last year were just an average team with Sam Darnold coming in, and now Seattle. Like, that's with 4 different teams and 4 different coaches and 4 different coordinators. And the guy, of course, everyone's talking about it now, right? Like, he is, the first one from that draft class that had everybody in the draft class.
Yep.
In 2018.
Yep.
Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Baker Mayfield, and Sam Darnold is the first one to get to the Super Bowl. You told me at the beginning of the playoffs, and you can correct me on this, that you thought the Seattle Seahawks were going to win the Super Bowl. Do you still believe that?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I know this game will be closer than most people think, and Vegas's opening line, I think, sort of, makes that pretty clear that it should be. Because I think with New England, right, they did have the 2nd highest points per game average this year, but they also played the easiest schedule. So you can't really say they can be explosive on offense, because now in 3 playoff games against 3 really, really good defenses, they've done almost nothing. So you can't say from that perspective, but New England will, I think, slow the game down offensively. They will not make mistakes. They will not beat themselves, right? They'll play smart and resilient football, but I just think Seattle is just too good on both sides of the ball. And the New England defense, while it has looked really good because of Jared Stidham and snow, because CJ Stroud threw the ball to them all night long, and because poor Justin Herbert was playing behind like an 8th string offensive line, right? That's why they looked so good. So you kind of combine all of that. I just think Seattle's too good on both sides of the ball, and I think now that Darnold's sort of now again, this is the Super Bowl, and there's a lot of
Yeah.
pressure to play. So
And
who knows how he's gonna
we'll
how he's
talk
gonna
next week about
yeah.
like the Super Bowl predictions. It's just I was more that you really believed in Seattle at the
Yeah.
beginning of these playoffs, and it's they have looked the part. That is for sure. I want to get to some of these coaches. Last week when we talked about it, it's always a coach first. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. Joe Brady, 36 years old, is their new head coach. I will ask you, do you think Joe Brady was the first hire, or was this we can't let Joe Brady out of the building?
You know what? I haven't had too much time to think about it because I just heard that about 3 o'clock this afternoon because I hadn't had a chance to kind of check the news. But
That's why we like to get you in these
yeah,
times where it's like you don't want to overthink it. What's your
that's
first
true.
reaction?
First reaction is I don't think he was valued enough in the building to say just don't let him out of the building. He must have really wowed them because here's the thing, right? Every coordinator that wants to be a head coach needs to be thinking like a head coach, preparing to be a head coach, compiling his own philosophies and his how am I going to be a leader in the locker room? How am I going to relinquish control of my side of the ball? And how am I going to be the CEO, right, of the team? So he obviously had all of that lined up and he probably did a great job in the interview. I don't think it was simply just, oh, if we lose him as a coordinator, we're going to take 5 steps back. They obviously felt like he was the best interview because at the end of the day, their job is to find the right guy, the best guy, regardless of what the
Mhm.
fallout might be. So I got to assume he just really did a great job. And there's certainly an upside to keeping somebody who has experience and history with the team, certainly with your best player. I know Josh Allen loves him, and so that probably entered into it. But it's kind of like Jesse Minter, right, going to Baltimore because I think it was because he had spent so many years with John Harbaugh in Baltimore and really understood the culture of that team. And again, I'm sure he did a great job in the interview, but he was that right fit. So I think Joe Brady, that's a bit of a stretch, honestly. And anytime you get the first time offensive or first time head coach who was a coordinator, it's a roll of the dice. There's probably equal amount of failures as there are success stories like a
Mhm.
Ben Johnson or Matt LaFleur or whoever.
5-year deal for Joe Brady
Wow.
with the Buffalo Bills. I happen to love it, and you'll understand why. It really reminds me of what the Cowboys did. The
Mm-hmm.
Cowboys fired Mike McCarthy. We'll get to Mike McCarthy here in a second. They fired Mike McCarthy and decided that Brian Schottenheimer, their offensive coordinator, who had never been a head coach, but knew Dak Prescott, knew the system, and knew the culture of the team,
Mm-hmm.
had his own ideas, and was beloved by the players, was the right fit. Because it's, a guy that is beloved by the players, the guy that does all the right things, but has his own ideas, but can't implement those ideas until he's in charge. This
Mm-hmm.
one feels exactly the same.
Yeah.
If they went with a new head coach in Buffalo, and then that new coach would have to bring in his new offensive coordinator, and what would Josh Allen be thinking at that point?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
it's a whole new guy, it's a whole new system, it's 2 new guys. Like, are we really going to get back? Like, we're close. And they are close.
Mm-hmm.
The Buffalo Bills. So I actually really, really like this, but that's also based on, I think Brian Schottenheimer is the right guy in Dallas, and that this is kind of the same scenario there.
And it will be very interesting to that comparison because the Cowboys, they didn't make the playoffs. They had lots of reasons that derailed that over the course of the
Yeah,
season.
his
In
name is
fairness,
Matt Eberflus. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
so yeah, you don't. But I think the Bills are the Cowboys weren't at a point where everybody said, "Oh, they're right there. This is their year." Whereas Buffalo is so close. And to your
Mhm.
point now, what does it look like if there's a step back? What does it look like when maybe Joe Brady doesn't do a great job of game management because he's never done it before?
Yep.
What if he has a hard time, giving up? And maybe he will call the plays. I don't know. But how do you manage all of that? So you don't want to judge him because next year might not be successful, but at the same time, you've still got the best one of the best 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. So you should expect
Mhm.
they should be as close or closer next year, right? And if not, then that
Yep.
could be a lot of pressure. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why Joe Brady got a 5-year deal out of it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Was be
to his credit, right?
Right,
I mean
because he
that he
goes in there
negotiated
and
that. Yeah.
yeah, because if he goes in and it doesn't go well in year 1, there is gonna be a lot of pressure for the
Yeah.
Buffalo Bills, so good for him. I'm a little bit baffled by Mike McCarthy being
Mhm.
hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Me too.
Okay. Um, why do you think that he is the right fit for this team?
I'm not sure he is, and I really don't understand um, big picture their rationale, and it seems to me mainly to go against the grain of what they've done for the last 40 years with their coach, like with their new coach, right? So you think about, well, you weren't around. I was barely around when Chuck Noll was hired in 1969, right? But he was a young, at the time, young coordinator that got his or assistant coach to
Right.
get his first head coaching job, and he coached until 82, whatever it was, when Bill Cowher, who came over as a coordinator, young kid, came in and spent 20 years. And then we all know Mike Tomlin. I think he was 29 when he got the job as a defensive coordinator in Minnesota. So it feels like that's the Steelers mold, right? Find that next young coach, and then we
Mhm.
want him. We want him to stay for 15 or we don't want to be making this decision again. If Mike McCarthy stays 20 years, he'll be the oldest coach in the history of football, right? At what, 83 years old or something, right? So that alone surprised me, and I just didn't feel like, from a resume perspective, he had the good run in Green Bay for sure, had a Hall of Fame quarterback in his prime. Doesn't have that or anything close to it. Actually, has the same guy in Pittsburgh right now, and in Dallas, of course, uneven. Like they were there, they were close, all those things. I don't know. I just feel like there was many more worthy young candidates out there that fit the bill of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and this seems a little bit like more of a short-term, just like they've been trying to do for whatever since Roethlisberger retired, find short-term answers at quarterback. It feels like now a short-term answer at the head coach position. So I found it
Yeah,
odd.
I did too. The only thing I can even wrap my head around with it is that he basically came in and said, "Look, I'm going to be the CEO, but the coordinators are really going to be the
Mhm.
coaches.
Yep. Fair enough.
But I have the expertise to oversee them and
Yep.
put them in the right positions for them to be the next. And maybe they're just going to groom someone exactly like you said, but not throw them into the fire right away and kind of have Mike McCarthy looking over them
Right.
for a while to get there."
Yeah.
That
And
that
sorry, I was just saying, I think a lot of people are thinking, well, it's because he's got the relationship with Aaron Rodgers, but that can't be the reason. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers wants to play, I'm not even sure it should be in Pittsburgh, and I think he's he's at the end of his rope. We
it
know
can't
that, so
be. Yeah.
it can't be. That can't be the. Hey, if we get you, you can coax one more really good year out of a guy that's past running on fumes.
Want a quick thought on Mike McDaniel being the new offensive coordinator with Justin Herbert and the Chargers? This one seems from the outside like this might be a good fit.
Well, I mean, Mike McCarthy, sorry,
Mike
McDaniel,
McDaniel.
thank you, McDaniels, cut his teeth as an offensive coordinator and was the kind of young guru of the run game, especially. And so that's interesting to me because you've got Justin Herbert. That team has typically been a team that throws the ball, so that'll be interesting. I just found it interesting what happened with him. It just felt, I used the analogy the other day that it felt a little bit like a Liam Cohen situation last year where he went from Tampa to Jacksonville to interview as the head coach, and then he didn't take the job, and he went back, and then something happened. He changed his mind, and he went AWOL. Remember, they couldn't find him for a couple of days, and then he
Yeah.
pops up in press conference in Jacksonville. He's a head coach, and McDaniels. I mean, he went to Buffalo apparently to interview, and then he pulled himself from consideration after he'd already been, I guess, informally announced as the coordinator in LA, and then back he goes to LA, and now he's the coordinator there 100% for sure. It just feels like he's a bit flaky, and the whole thing just seemed really odd. Like, you get fired, you want to take your next job and get it, you go commit to that team, and then it's like, okay, okay, you guys want me, but I'm just going to go talk to Buffalo, and if they give me something better, I'll be back. Maybe it was an odd thing. So I think he's a really good X and O guy, and he's still got lots of. Obviously, he's a young guy, so I think he'll be fine. But just a very strange way it all came together.
What are we supposed to watch this weekend, Duke, with no football?
Is the Pro Bowl, the flag football thing on this weekend?
Oh yes, I did. You know what? I will watch that with the same level of quarterback that Shedeur Sanders. Right. I did text you that earlier that Shedeur Sanders into the Pro Bowl because Drake May couldn't make it, and it's the exact same level. So yeah, no, that's.
Hey, do you think Drake May will win the MVP or not? Now, of course, it's got nothing to do with playoffs. This was all
right. So I have something for you. I have a question back, which is what good journalists do when they don't want to answer the question. They deflect. So I'll give you these stats. Okay. 64% completion percentage, 7.5 yards per pass, 32 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Do you think that person should be the MVP?
I don't think that person exists.
Well, those are the numbers, Duke, of the quarterback against the New York Jets every week. So I feel like
every week. Okay.
Yeah, that's a total 64% completion percentage, 7.5 yards per pass, 32 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Wow.
That's what quarterbacks did against the New York Jets this year. That's the MVP for me.
I should have caught on to that. But you're not suggesting that sullies Drake May's stats because he played 2 games against the Jets. So did Josh Allen, by the way.
Is he the MVP? No.
And do you think it's because statistically he had a better year than Matt Stafford? But do you think Matt Stafford wins it for his Lifetime Achievement Award?
Do you think Sam Darnold had a better year than Drake May?
I'd have to look at the stats. They both had the same number of wins.
One would say that Seattle's schedule was a little bit harder.
Well, everybody was a little bit harder.
Okay.
New England was 32.
I just wanted to ask you, do you think Sam Darnold had a better year than Drake May? And
depends on your criteria.
Okay, well, I do. And I think Matt Stafford did too. And Drake May would not be winning the MVP. And I'm not even being that facetious. I make fun of you. They're in the Super Bowl. That's awesome. He did face some tough defenses in the playoffs, but what he did during the regular season was not screw it up.
Yep.
And I'm not giving an MVP to a guy who didn't screw it up.
Although his yards per completion were higher than anybody in the NFL.
Duke, they didn't play.
They weren't playing conservative.
Yeah, but they didn't play anybody.
Hey, just a last thought. So you know how the scheduling works, right? So the AFC East plays each other, obviously, six games.
Yeah.
And they all play the same other divisions, right? It's all equal. So AFC East would play NFC West and AFC East would play whatever, right? It's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference is where you finished in the standings, you would then play other first play. And so for Buffalo this year, their schedule against the rest of the league was exactly the same as New England's, with the exception of their first place games, the one against Kansas City, and the other one I can't think of who they played. But
Baltimore.
15 of their games were the same opponents as New England. So did Josh Allen have a year like Drake May with basically playing against the same schedule?
Well,
just a thought. Just a thought.
Well, my thought is I'm not giving the MVP to Josh Allen. That's my thought.
Okay, fair enough. But you're just saying that Drake May's year should not be just seen out of the lens of he was the only guy that got to play a bit of a soft schedule.
He's had a great year. And whether he wins the MVP or not, he has had a great year.
Thank you. Thanks.
Why? I mean, it's the same argument that Tony Romo is still doing AFC Championship games because he's the best.
Okay. And there's no way to vote on that, is there?
No. He is getting hammered on social.
Good.
Like he's getting good hammered on social media. Like he just gets killed now because now apparently Tom Brady's the best thing ever. However, we'll talk next week about the Super Bowl and appreciate your time very much here on OSN, our football insider.
I like
Duke,
that.
Duke Ellingson.
Thanks, Lee. Look at
And
that, 30 minutes.